Scotia.
Thank you, Your Honour. I get to sit beside an incredibly inspiring and principled man, and I really appreciate that. Today, I love the idea of, when we get to study really narrow, focused, short pieces of legislation. This is not one of those pieces of legislation, and we're hearing about the complexities when you have a more aspirational, more challenging objective in front of you. For this reason, I just want to focus on the extent to which our Prime Minister has committed to fulfilling the rights and responsibilities that I think Senator Labbe-Benson outlined. It will require compromise. Bills like this require compromise and faith. I mean, I don't think any of us have passed a bill that's better than a B or a B plus in our time here. We don't get the opportunity to see many A bills. They all have flaws and imperfections that we have to really realize that there is an obligation to do better. C-5 is one of those astonishing pieces of legislation that is requiring us to work together on climate change and a global net zero objective, energy production in that time, environmental protections, Indigenous rights, provincial concerns and grievances, all coming together in one piece of legislation. This is as tough a piece of legislation I think any of us have ever faced. But within this list, and I think Indigenous Canadians have had a unique position, given past practice in this country. I am part of a substrate of the human race that has caused a lot of harm in the past. And so I acknowledge the irony of me speaking on this issue, because there's a lot of harms that have eroded the ability to have trust. And so I think that puts, as Senator Francis said, after generations of harms, exclusion, Indigenous Canadians have a greater stake than most. And I think there's a lot of truth to that very simple statement, very clear statement. But a precondition here is that the PM's really put forward, the Prime Minister's put forward a really clear precondition on any project that he wants to consider under Part 2, which is that First Nations, it has to have Indigenous support. He said that to the provinces before they met. They bring forward projects, but they must have Indigenous support. So when you consider that with the honour of the Crown, not only did King Charles speak his own words about the paramount importance of word and deed as it relates to relationship with Canada's Indigenous peoples, he spoke the Prime Minister's words. So that puts the Prime Minister in a position where he has caused our monarch to make promises. And there's a lot of relationships, a lot of deals with I call them deals because I think that's the way people should think of treaties. It's a deal. We like to honour deals in Canada. We haven't honoured those deals. And so the commitment to, and I'll quote, to build Canada strong, the government is working closely with provinces, territories and Indigenous peoples to identify and catalyse projects of national significance. And then he goes on to say, to accelerate major projects while, and I quote, upholding Canada's world-leading environmental standards and constitutional obligations to Indigenous peoples. Further, the government will be a reliable partner to Indigenous peoples, upholding the fundamental commitment to advancing reconciliation. Central to this commitment is the creation of long-term wealth and prosperity for Indigenous peoples. Those are commitments that our Prime Minister asked King Charles III to make on behalf of his government. Rights, land, and process have been trampled in the past. We've got a situation where Prime Minister Carney has promised to cut a new path, to establish a new practice. And if he doesn't, and I remember seeing the clip of you outside the House of Commons saying, if you don't do it now, you're going to do it later in the courts. And I think the Prime Minister must know that if we don't establish a new practice now, that this will end up slowing everything down in the long run. So the objective of this bill will be undermined. And I go back to last night, Senator Duncan, a very passionate speech, sharing the model of success that she worked and was part of working hard with many, many others to establish in Yukon. This is something that we've got to trust the Prime Minister to generalize. This is not the general practice. This hasn't been the general practice. And I think we, by speaking so long about this in the Senate, by it being such a concern in the Senate, I think we're reinforcing the courts. If that new model isn't followed, court action will be reinforced by the fact that we were deeply concerned about this issue in the chamber at this point in time. So I'm hopeful that the Prime Minister will be leading a process of implementing this bill that follows the model of success and models of success like the one Senator Duncan spoke about so well last night. And that's the basis that I'm looking at this bill. I really respect the passion and integrity you bring, Senator Prosper. Thank you.
Thank you.